Yeah, and what you said about the golden thread. Well, yeah, that's a great one too. Because when I was listening to you, I understood this golden thread like synchronicity. Is that right?
Yeah.
And yeah. Can you tell us more about that? It's really interesting.
Yeah. So, with coming into this spontaneous healing, and then, it was a few years. Hindsight's always 2020, right? We can always see better when we look backwards. Mm-hmm. But now I'm starting to recognize synchronicities as they're happening, like right when they're happening. And with expanded awareness, we notice more. And it's because we're paying attention. When we start to pay attention, we will notice more. When we notice more, we will experience more. And some people say, what do you mean experience more? And I go, you get more out of an experience. Like it's the same as you get more out of a book if you read it a second time or a third time or a fourth time, right? You can actually start to experience more. And in those experiences, you're getting the full broad spectrum of the experience. So you have to be willing to experience more. If that doesn't mean only more happiness, it can also mean more sadness too. So you're finally willing to say, well, I like it all. I like that I'm a feeling human being. So I'll experience the sad and the happy and the joy and the despair.
Yeah.
And because you're allowing it all in, you actually experience those synchronicities now, because you're allowing everything in instead of keeping portions of things out. Does that make sense? And when I met my husband now, and he was Zeke's son, that was one incredible synchronicity. But what was funny was even 3 months before I met him, my own personal assistant, she was having a baby and she was in the hospital, and she called me the day that she had the baby. And she said, hey, we had our baby. And I said, oh my goodness, what'd you name him? And she said, we named him Zeke. And I said, Zeke, it's not a common American name. It's not very, used very much. And I said, why'd you pick Zeke? Yeah. And she said, I don't know. We just like the name. And so I thought, well, that's weird. I've had this story about my mom and Zeke, and it's been in my mind for years. And now my own personal assistant is naming her son Zeke. And then 3 months later, I met Zeke's son, my husband. And then a few months later, we were talking, and my husband has a scar on his back, this long, like 7-inch scar. And I said, hey, what happened to your back? And he shared how he slipped in the shower and cut it on a piece of glass, and it cut his whole back open and cut both of his arteries, and he bled like a ton. And we got talking about when it happened. I said, when did that happen to your back? And he told me when, and I told him when I healed my back, and we found out they happened on the same night. So the same night, 12 years before we met, he cut his back open in the same spot that I healed my back. And that was part of the quantum entanglement. And then a few months later, we're driving down the street, and he just kind of points to a building, and he says, I used to work in that building. And I looked at him curious, and I said, well, that's weird. I worked in the building across the street. And so we said, well, when did you work there? And we found out that it was 4 years before, and we'd literally worked right across the street from each other before we ever met each other. So the universe was drawing us closer and closer and closer. And now we have experiences like just day to day, I think about someone and they text me, and I go somewhere, or I'm speaking about someone to a friend. Oh, how's so-and-so? And then I go into a store and there they are. Oh, I was just asking about you. I'm so glad I get to see you and see how you're doing, because I was wondering. It's those kinds of synchronicities, and they're just happening in like real time, so fast. And that synchronicity happens the more and more and more we get aligned, and that we allow that flow of information and flow of experiences to just open us up to life.
Yeah, I love that. I love Jung's book, A Carl Jung. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned a lot about synchronicity. but still feel like it's not enough to understand the synchronicity phenomenon. So until I have some experience in my real life about synchronicity, so I started to really know what does that mean. But your story, it's like really enhanced the understanding about synchronicity. What I felt is like it's like a symphony in your life,
Yeah.
about the zik zik zik.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny about that, it's just a repeating, and repetition is the mother of all learning. So I started to notice repetitions in synchronicity showing up in my life. We moved into the home we're in now about 10 months ago. And when we moved in, it was just about 4 months after we got married. We moved into this house and we were starting to get to know our neighbors, people that lived around us. And my husband was outside one day and was talking to the next door neighbor's son. And he was a teenager and he said, "Hey, what's your name?" And he looked at my husband and he said, "Oh, my name's Zeke." And my husband goes, "What? Your name's Zeke?" And he goes, "Yeah." And my husband's name is Stephen. And so he said, "Well, what's your dad's name?" And, we just moved in and I'd love to come and meet your mom and dad. And he said, "Oh, my dad's name's Stephen." So my husband came in and he goes, "Angie, you'll never guess. Our next door neighbors are named Stephen and Zeke." And I said, "What?" And I told him, I said, "This is so crazy that keeps showing up in our lives." And we had felt so right about moving here. And we didn't know how long we'd stay, but we just knew it felt good and we'll just come and we'll be here for however long Spirit tells us to stay. And all of a sudden, within a couple of days, we're finding out our next door neighbors are Zeke and Steve. And, so like you said, it's a repeating and a recurring pattern in our lives. And I really feel like it's the universe speaking to us. Now, my mom passed away. She died about 2 years before I met Steve, my husband. And yet I also feel like she's been kind of giving me little spiritual messages from the other side. She constantly kind of gives me little drippings of messages, and they help me in my life. So it's really helped expand my awareness that, we're not alone. We have people that are helping us all around us at all times and assisting us. And so for whatever reason, I seem to, you mentioned Carl Jung, and he talks about archetypes as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I've learned in all of this experience is that certain archetypes are showing up in mine and my husband's life. And that's kind of Carl Jung's idea, is that it's really just part of the great cosmos of life. And that as we expand in awareness, we start to see these archetypes in our life. And so I'm a numerologist. I also read the Akashic records, and I kind of get into some of those spiritual side of things that many people are awakening to. And even in our numerology, my husband and I'm a 9 and he's a 6. So we're the yin and the yang. And then in our expression, we're both 1111. And those are said to be the twin flame key codes. And yet it's just funny because it really doesn't matter where I look, Lynn. They're showing up everywhere. And I have dreams that teach me a lot of things. And one of my dreams about a year ago, it kept repeating. I also get repetition in my dreams. And it said, "You are the manual. You are the manual. You are the manual." And I woke up and I told my husband, I said, "What is going on?" I said, "I had the weirdest dream last night." And then it hit me. I said, "I think we're actually hold the manual for twin flames." I said, because everywhere we look, we are the demonstration of what they are said to be. And so it was just kind of funny that, that just these little things, but we all can have magical, mystical experiences like this when we all change and let go of our beliefs that are keeping us from believing that life could be magical and mystical.
Yeah, that's so true. Including your story and some of my personal experience, I really think our human life is so so unreal. It's so
Right?
magical. Yeah, sometimes things just happen like that all of a sudden and totally don't make any sense. It just happened like that. And yeah, so yes, I really love your story.
And you can't make it up. We had some friends over today, and one of our friends, he just has known me for a number of years, and he said to me, he goes, Angie, it's so funny. He goes, you cannot make this stuff up. And I said, no, you really can't. Like when it starts to get magical, it just really surprises you, surprises and amazes you.
Yeah, that's so true. And so you are the manual, which implies your life story or your relationship story experience. It's kind of the manual of twin flame, right?
Yeah, that's what that dream was. And it still feels funny to even say it, but I can't deny that that's what happened. And I woke right up and I told him and said, okay, it's going to sound really weird, but this was the dream over and over and over and over again.